Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman. VM Nation, this is going to be amazing. Guys, if you ever wanted to learn how to build $1 million business, you're going to get the blueprint from the man, the myth, and the legend, my brother Tyler. He's built several $1 million businesses. He's built a $70 million business. He's got an amazing LinkedIn profile, Facebook, Instagram. We're going to be talking about all that. But guys, this guy gets me out of bed, gets me motivated to make sure that I'm doing the things I need to do to create the best podcast in the world. So, Tyler, brother, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I love it. Like I said, I've been following you. I've watched every video I think you've done. I love your Instagram. It's fire. I love what you're doing. But my first question is, what is your definition of resiliency?
I think very simply for me, it's just simply not quitting. I think most people quit too soon or they expect results too fast. And a lot of my story is literally just pushing through for a long time. It wasn't really anything special.
All right. So then give us a quick down and dirty about where'd you come from, where'd you grow up, and how did you become the force that you are today?
Sure. So I grew up in a family, 7 kids. Dad was a teacher. Mom was stay at home. Had 2 older sisters, then 2 younger brothers, 2 younger sisters. So growing up, I didn't really have an older brother. Did a lot of dress ups, tea parties, things like that. Probably my dad should have helped me with. So I got bullied a lot as a young kid. I was, I'd say more on the strange side. And I finally realized at around 12 years old that those kids were making fun of me, and it really I got me upset, I guess is the right word. And I started going to the gym before school, like 5 a.m. My mom would take my sisters to Bible study. She dropped me off at the gym. She picked me up. And then I essentially would go to class. And I started getting a lot of compliments about 3 months in because I was going through puberty. I was building muscle. And I was like, hey, this is pretty great. If I work hard, good things happen. And that really started to reinforce into, dating and grades and sports. And I really excelled in sports from 12 to 22. My whole ambition in life was playing the NFL. I got to the Division 1 level, got hurt a bunch. I also don't think I was good enough, but I did everything I felt I could have done. I felt like I truly maximized my potential in sports. When that was done, I had a mentor who convinced me to drop out of college. I had a 3.9, had a year left. I was doing petroleum engineering, had a 120,000 salary plus waiting for me, and he convinced me to drop out. And I went back and lived at my parents' house and started building this business. And then over the next couple of years, he taught me about funnels and opt-in pages and all these things that have to do with digital marketing that was very foreign to me. And during that time, I was trying to sell a program called the Rapid Muscle System. And I sold maybe $2,000 worth of product in 2 years. And so during these 2 years, I'm working 12 to 16 hours a day, probably. And it was very depressing. And it was very difficult because I didn't feel like I had any support. Everyone thought what I was doing was crazy. I wasn't really sure if I should be doing it. I stuck with it. And then finally, when I turned 25, I was just about to quit and go back to school. So I'm coming up on year 3. And I don't know why it was 25. I think I just stopped believing I was young. I had a lot of adults tell me, hey, you're young, you can do it. Like, just, you got time. And at 25, for whatever reason, I just felt, hey, I need to get my stuff figured out. So I saw an ad on Facebook that was about building an online fitness company, clicked on it, gave them everything of my net worth. I went from 2,000 net worth to 0, and then put all of the rest on a credit card. And I got in, and it wasn't anything super flashy, but they said, just raise your prices and get on a phone call. And I just finished doing door-to-door sales for 9 months. So I was very good at sales. And in that first week, just raising my prices and getting on a phone, I made 10K. And then I called my parents. I'm like, yo, I figured this stuff out. Let me come back home. I'm going to build my business. And sure enough, that year I did $1 million. Did so well that I had trainers all across the country start asking me for help. I think it was because of ClickFunnels, because people saw my awards and I was like the fitness guy, right? This guy built his company without being a business coach. And then all these people wanted me to business coach them. So I started building what was called Fitness CEOs. We did 10 million that year. That was the craziest year of my life. It was like, I want to say it was 2019 to 2020, crazy year. And then the year after that, I built Elite CEOs because I have more people outside of fitness who wanted help. And I've been doing that ever since with, I have different portfolio companies and things I own now, but that was really kind of A to Z my story. So yeah, hopefully that gave a little insight.
I love it. So let's go back because um, I'm a big BYU guy. Um, I've been following that program since Steve Young back in the day. And so take us into the locker room of such a storied place and what lessons you've learned from that great school.
Yeah, so it's very interesting you asked that. College is very different than high school. It's very business oriented. It seemed very cutthroat to me. I don't think it's anything about BYU in particular. I think it's college football in general. D1 is exactly how you'd picture. It is a business. The coaches are paid to win. They get a lot of money. You know, I know like the BYU doesn't quite as much. That's like a outside school, but like, you know, Nick Saban gets what 8 to 13 million a year, et cetera. Like it's very serious. It's not a joke. So you kind of I felt a little bit just like your cattle in a sense. Like there's 120, 130 guys. You got workouts, training, film, you got class. If you wanted to get good grades personally, it really pushed me in all the right ways because a lot of the guys on the team would not get good grades because after practice, they would go hang out with girls and whatever else. But I had to study because I was doing engineering. It was very difficult. So my days would pretty much start around 5 a.m. I would do 6 hours of football and then I do about 6 hours of class. Then I pass out and that's all I would do. So it was I would say it's very difficult. It was one of the most difficult things I've ever done trying to do both at the same time. And I see why a lot of athletes either don't have good grades or don't, make it. But I also got to see a lot of good athletes. I got to play with Iggy Odenshaw slightly. He went 5th pick in the draft. I was actually there when Jake Heaps was there, and he wasn't, he didn't turn out to be as good as people hoped, but it was a good experience for me from that standpoint. And I think the biggest thing I learned during that time was just it's easier to work more than work less. And what I mean by that is I actually had better grades and performed better when I had 18 hours of credits and was doing a full-time football schedule versus when I had 12 credits and I wasn't. And it's kind of the saying, how you do one thing is how you do anything. And if your schedule is jam-packed, you have to be so efficient that there's just no room for error. But I really worked hard there and it just really kind of kept me down that path. Summer workouts, and I'll end on this, was we do about 2.5 hours of lifting and then we'd have to run 16 100s. And if anyone finished under, 12 or over 12 seconds, you had to do them again. So these were very rigorous workouts and it was very difficult. And it pushed me to my absolute limit mentally, physically, emotionally. But I don't regret it at all because I think all these things really prepared me to be a business owner. And that was never my goal. I never thought about being a business owner. I just want to be in the NFL my whole life.
Okay, so I want to talk about a few things because there was another famous person that's really helped me out a lot, and name is Russell Brunson.
Yeah.
And we all know Russell from from ClickFunnels and his 3 Amazing Trilogy series, and then also somebody that's I feel that I can't wait to get him on the show. I know he's going to be coming on the show soon. Alex Hermosi. So, but talk to us a little bit about, because sometimes we get so fearful that we want to hold on to that $2,000 that we don't see the $1 million that can come if we do invest in ourselves and invest in some coaches and some programs. So what was that process like when you actually had to spend your $2,000 and then take out the credit card to even spend even more? What was your thought process in finally making a decision to do it?
Yeah. I mean, I just decided I'd rather be homeless than be poor anymore. It was that blunt. 22 to 25. The reason I didn't hire a coach was, one, I didn't really even know it existed. I didn't even know about high ticket. I didn't understand what it was. I didn't understand there were coaching. I had no idea that this was a thing. And I also had been successful pretty much at everything I'd ever done in my life. Even when football ended, I walked away. I was depressed for a few months, but I also was very satisfied that I'd maximize my potential. Because like when you play with Iggy Ansah and he goes 5th pick in the draft and he played 6 games in college, he's 6'7", 280, runs a 4.5. I'm like, and he never, he wasn't training at all. And I was training, hours and hours a day, and I wasn't even close to his strength and size. I felt like I'd maximize what I had. But yeah, when I finally hired a coach, I just was like, I'm 25. I've tried doing it my way. It hasn't worked. And it was the first time I even knew something like that existed. And I was so desperate for change that I was willing to do anything because I knew it couldn't get any worse. Like what was the worst thing that could happen? I go live at home with my parents. I'd already done that. There was nothing bad that could happen to me. And so that's also, I guess that would be advice for other entrepreneurs out there, is that the best advice I ever got was to drop out of school, because he said, when you get older, if you get a job and you get a wife and you get a girlfriend, all these things, he's like, you're not going to leave because you have too much to lose. Right now, you got nothing to lose. You think you do, but you don't. And that was actually probably the best piece of advice I ever got. So I don't know, $2,000 net worth is, it feels like a lot when that's all you have, but in hindsight, it's hilarious because I had nothing to lose, right? So it was an easy decision, I guess.
But one thing that like I said, I've been watching every video, I've been watching everything you've done. You've pretty much stayed focused, and I say focused, follow one course until successful. You stayed focused on one thing, and even said something Russell talked about is, don't go on to one thing until you make a lot of money at this one thing. So talk to us about being focused and putting your nose to the grindstone and not getting that shiny object syndrome once you start seeing a little bit of success.
Yeah. I mean, one of my good friends, Alex, always says that the best business is the business you don't own. And I think that's very true, because on the outside look, you can see someone else's business, go, man, if I had that, if I had this, but what you usually don't see is behind the scenes. I think a lot of people, it's, if I had to show a diagram, if you had, like, let's say 7 cups in front of you and you fill up each cup a little bit, that's actually harder than doing 1 cup all the way, because you have different teams, different offers, different products. You're spread so thin. You can't possibly run multiple companies unless you have very good management, which means the companies have to be doing a lot of revenue to hire those types of individuals. So for me, I don't know. I only stayed focused because my goal was to always hit $1 million a month. And I'd say most consulting businesses in this space, 30 million a year is about the cap. You might see a few over it, et cetera, but it's about 30 million. That's the cap. Sam Ovens pivoted, Becker pivoted, even Alex kind of technically pivoted, even though he still owns Gym Launch. There's just a lot of, there's no reason not to follow those guys' path, because that is the path if you want to get to higher levels. So I felt like once I got there, the goal was to get there to prove I could do it, to prove I had the skills to build the team, to do the marketing, the sales. And I think once you get there, you have enough skill that you can go off into other places and make more money. And a lot of the billionaires I've spoken to, they're all internet marketing backgrounds. And the reason is because once you match good marketing with good products, you can't get beat. It's just most people, they don't actually have like good products. They're really good at marketing. But yeah, I mean, hopefully I answered the question correctly, but I'm very blessed and I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had in this industry, because whenever I go talk to other people who have amazing products, it's so simple to get them results because the product's so good. And a lot of times people just don't have good products and they're not good at marketing. So it's a catastrophe.
And so the people that listen to this, a lot of them are veterans. A lot of them are just getting out of the military, wanting to start a company. So, give us a quick down and dirty about, how do you go about building $1 million company? Because that's what you do. And that's what you teach. So give us a quick down and dirty.
Yeah. Did you say million or billion?
Whatever you want, brother. I'll take it all. I'll take the M's and I'll take the B's. I'll take the M's and the B's.
Yeah, well, I can give like some insight of what I've learned from billionaires. I haven't built $1 billion company myself. I think I understand more what I need to do. But yeah, in terms of $1 million company, it's actually fairly simple. You just need one offer, one source of traffic, and you usually just need a couple team members, because it's only $83,000 a month to hit $1 million a year. So what I always teach is high ticket. The reason is, if you actually look, I did low ticket for 3 years. The reason it didn't work is I didn't have a big social following. So I couldn't get a lot of traffic, couldn't get enough eyeballs. And then 2, if you're selling something for $47, just to pay your bills, you need like 100 sales a month, or like something crazy. It's just not, it's too much volume. And then the price point is so low that I can't get on calls with people. So once I was able to raise my price point to 1,500 plus, I was selling it all day, and it was worth my time to do hour phone calls, which is obviously much easier to close than like through a link. No one's going to pay you $1,500 through a link that doesn't know you. And then once I did that, all I did is I took that cash and I just dumped it into ads and building my team. And I just scaled it until I was doing, we got as high as about almost 2 million a month, got close to that. And that, I mean, it's obviously hard, but it's simple, meaning that the way I view business now is that if you have the shovel and you just dig the hole, it's very simple. It's just most people, they overcomplicate it, right? And they think there's some special strategy or some special sauce. It's not. A lot of times it's just people are avoiding doing the work that needs to be doing. So for me, when people go, Tanner, how are you doing $50,000 months without ads? Like, do you actually want to know? They're like, yeah. I was like, I spent probably 12 hours a day messaging people and taking phone calls. They're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm like, okay, so yeah, don't do 50,000 a month. You can do 5K a month. I think you can choose what you want in life. You just can't choose how you're going to get there. There's a couple ways to skin a cat, but at the end of the day, it's going to be hard work. And there's no way to kind of get around the hard work. You gain more leverage as you become more wealthy. When you're poor, you have no leverage because you have no money. Leverage comes from building big companies and building big businesses. One of the guys we mentioned earlier, I mean, he's got leverage now because he has cash. So he can hire faster, he can pay more, he can have multiple companies and put management teams in. But that comes after building the beast. You have to build it first. So I think for most people listening, simplistically, you pick something that is in the health, wealth, or relationship niche, $1,500 or more. You get people on calls, you close, and then you run ads. And if you suck at messaging calls or ads, you got to learn how to do it. So you go pay for it. If you can't afford someone, then go to udemy.com and learn there. It's like $50 to $100 courses. Yeah, it's a course. You're not going to get a coach, but you just have to be willing to try. You have to be willing to fail. A lot of people, I think they're so afraid of failure, but they don't understand that failure is the prerequisite to success. So it shouldn't be to avoid failure. It's to fail as fast as possible because you're not going to make the right decision the first time. I had a sales guy today told me that this person spent $30,000 over 1.5 years. I was like, so they're basically paying 1K, like 1 to 2K a month, right? It's like 2K a month. And they're in the same spot. And I guess the thought process for me is like, why are you still doing the same stuff? Like, if you're doing the wrong thing, you should know in 30 to 60 days if it's wrong. It doesn't take 1.5 years to do something because it's either you're doing the wrong strategy or you suck at it. Either way, it's like if you're doing it to the best of your ability, it shouldn't take you 1.5 years. So I see a lot of people, they waste a lot of time, they waste a lot of money trying to hope that they're going to get around the work or some miracle will happen. My story is actually when I started trying to learn ads, I paid 5 coaches, $10K a piece in 5 months. Each program was 3 months long. So people are like, well, Tanner, why did you keep doing that? Because I said after 30 days, if I didn't get results, I knew either it was a me issue or a them issue. And I was banking on me that I was not the issue because I knew my work ethic compared to other people. I always thought I was. I was like, man, is it me? But I just knew that if what they're teaching me isn't working in the first 30 days, it's not going to work in the next 60 days. So why am I wasting my time? So obviously I get very passionate about it because I just want people to win. But I think a lot of people, they don't actually want to do what it takes. They say they do, but deep down, they aren't willing to do the things behind closed doors that is what it requires, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I get it because even like me, like today I've got 6 interviews, but for me that's how you get to become a top 0.5% podcaster in the world. You got to put in the work.
Yeah,
and but I also have to watch what Gary's doing. I have to watch what Ed Milet's doing, and I have to learn and see what's actually working for them and try to putting it into my workflow. So obviously when you first started out, you had to look at who was crushing it, and you had to kind of watch what they're doing, learn from them, and try to work backwards. And I think a lot of people that are starting businesses, they try to go look at the people they're doing okay. They're a little bit above me, but they don't really want to start studying the people that are really crushing it for some reason. Talk about that a little bit. Is that just imposter syndrome, or what is that?
And why they won't do the work, or what? Say the last part of the question. I apologize.
Like why, if I know that Ed Milet and Gary Vaynerchuk and they're at the top of the podcast game, why would I not try to see what they're doing and then work backwards instead of looking at a podcast that's a little bit bigger than mine? So why not go for the best learn from the best instead of learning from the mediocre?
Yeah, well, I think I don't think the issue is learning from the best. I think the issue is that people are learning at the wrong spot. So Gary Vee will say a lot of things that I actually disagree with for beginners. I love Gary Vee, but he'll say things like, yeah, go, I don't know, he'll have $1 a day strategy. And I think the strategy is like, go DM X amount of people, some word. I can't remember. It's just some of the stuff he's saying to do. It may work for him where he has this big team and a lot of money, but some things are not going to work for beginners. And so I think instead of looking where Gary is now, look at where he was.
Yeah.
That's the hard part, because that takes, you got to go look, you got to research, you got to kind of see what was Gary doing in the beginning where I'm at versus where he's at now. So I definitely agree. You should learn from the people you want to emulate. But I think the problem is they're trying to emulate here versus here. So like Alex Hormozy, we brought him up, good friends with Alex. People are looking at what Alex is doing now. It's like, you need to look at what Alex was doing with Gym Lunch.
Yeah.
What was he doing here? This is where you are. You're not over here without, like, and I think that's the disconnect. And because I'm friends with him and I've seen his rise and I've kind of been with him the whole way, I kind of understand that, but a lot of other people don't. And so they get these misconceptions or misbeliefs about, oh, here's what Alex is doing. It's like, Alex has 20, let's say he has 20 video editors. Like, you don't need to be shooting all this content. You don't have funds for it. He spends 80 grand a month. You don't have 80 grand a month. There's a lot of things where people, they think they need to be doing all these things as beginners, but they don't. So I guess like the biggest issue is just they're looking at the wrong spot. It's not, don't copy where Tanner's at, copy where Tanner was. And that's where a lot of people, they forget.
Yeah. Like a lot of people, they don't know Alex's story. They don't realize that he slept in the warehouse for years trying to, and he was working 16, 18 hours a day. So a lot of, like you said, a lot of people don't see where Tanner's at now. I mean, where he came from, they just see where he's at now. And they don't realize there's no work. There's a struggle. You got to put in the reps. Like Ed Milet says, you got to put in the reps every single day.
Right.
So 100%. Now tell us, what was the moment when you started making the money? What clicked? What was the thing? Because I always tell everybody there was a certain moment for me when something clicked. That's when I got invited on a top 5 podcast to be a guest. That's when it clicked. So what was it that actually clicked for you when you started making 10 grand and you said, Mom, I'm coming home? What clicked?
Yeah. So when I was hiring these coaches, at the time, I thought it was all their fault, and it was probably somewhere in the middle. I think now that I've done both sides, I've been client, I've been a coach, consultant. Realistically, I think the best place to be as a consultant or coach is like, you don't take all your client success, and you definitely don't take all the blame. You just, the clients who crush, that's their thing. The clients don't crush, that's their thing. You kind of try to let them own more of it. But that just means if you're going to let them own the bad stuff, you have to let them own the good stuff. So it's a lot of that. But at the time, I was blaming a lot of these coaches and like, oh, this doesn't work, this isn't helping. And what they were showing me was how to do automated webinars for a fitness offer. And at the time, I didn't really know anyone who was doing very well with it. I knew a lot of business coaches were doing well, but I didn't really know any fitness trainers like myself. And so I paid a coach 10K, did the ads, all that stuff, didn't work. Paid another coach. And so I did this about every 30 days because I knew once the systems were set up, et cetera, if it wasn't working, it probably wasn't going to work. That's at least my mindset with it. I think a lot of people get in a mindset, oh, give it time. It doesn't take time to get ads to work. It's like, it's going to work or it's not going to work. That's it. It's very simple. So I got really frustrated. I actually called the 5th coach that I hired, and I was really upset. And I came on the call and I was pissed. And I was saying, a few choice words that you can imagine. And he basically challenged me and just said, well, I can give you a refund or you can stop crying and just do the work. And I'm a very, I don't know if I guess I just have too much ego to accept that. And so I said, okay, I'll show this guy. And I went back, and what had happened is this was right when ManyChat came out, where there were messenger ads. This was the first time. It's not new now, but at the time it was super hot, right? It was like brand new. And so what I did is I started messaging all the leads I'd gotten from the ads. And what happened is I booked a bunch of calls and I made $30,000 like in a couple of days. Like, oh shit, I'm going to be rich now. Like, that was like the moment I figured it out, because what I've been trying to do was run ads and kind of cross my fingers and hope that they book calls. But when I finally was like, you know what, I don't need them to book a call. I just need to have a conversation. And so once I had these conversations with people, what happened is that they started booking calls and it started going crazy. So Long story short, once that happened, my business just scaled dramatically, and we hit, 1 million a month in less than 18 months. And then I've never looked back. But that was the aha moment, is that I was trying to do what everyone else was doing. But the cool part is when you go a different direction and you scale something that most people consider unscalable, it gives you massive leverage. And I think right now we do about 200,000 DMs a month. There's nobody in the space, as far as I know, that does anywhere close to that. It's not even close. So we just win based on sheer volume and the fact that it's very hard to maintain a team of that size. As far as I'm aware. I mean, there might be someone else, but I don't know who they are.
Okay, so now, but you said something earlier, that once you raised your prices, that's when you started making money. And that's
Mhm.
for me also the same thing.
Yeah.
Because I wish I could remember who said it. I got 18 books going right now, so I don't remember who said it, but it was more or less those who pay attention.
Yep.
And it seems like you said, if you're just doing a $47 whatever, you know, you're not going to be able to scale and make a lot of money. But when you start offering $1,500 or above, that's when you're going to start making money. Because if people are going to spend $1,500, if they're like me, my wife's going to be like, "Why'd you spend that money? You better be putting it to good work." You know what I mean? So talk about just that one switching over from, not being the cheapest to maybe being the most expensive person in your niche.
Yeah. So the first reason of being fully transparent is, I mean, it's purely selfish reasons. I realized that for me to make 10K a month and have the life I wanted, that I was not going to work doing the $47 thing. And I said, you know what? As long as I give a good service, I'm going to charge these people the amount of money I want to make so I can live the lifestyle I want. That was the first thought. I think a lot of people feel guilty. There's nothing to feel guilty about. It's just you have provide the service, but you have to live the lifestyle you want or to hit the numbers. It's a business decision. Like, it has to make sense. So I did that, and then once I got on the calls, I realized that all I had to do to sell high priced products was get them to think that I was better than the other person. Keep in mind, I said think. It doesn't mean you actually have to be. Now, that's ethically you want to be. But the best trainer doesn't make the most money. It's the trainer who sells it the best. There's a million trainers better than me, but I've probably made more money than 99.9% of trainers on earth because I'm better at sales. I'm better at marketing. So it's perceived value, it's not actual value. And so what I realized on the call, and this is very simple, but I started to ask myself, I said, what do most people want who are overweight? And in short, they want to eat Twinkies and still look good and not work out. That's like on average, right? Like, they want to eat bad food, still not have to move a lot and look great. So I said, okay, how can I ethically sell that? How can I tell someone they don't have to do anything and look good? Well, if you know a lot about nutrition, there's kind of a diet out there called If It Fits Your Macros. Now, do I think eating Snicker bars all day is good for you? Absolutely not. But the law of thermodynamics, as long as you eat less than your body needs, you will lose weight. And a lot of people overcomplicate weight loss. Now, some will disagree with that statement. I get it, but that's my take. And I think most of the scientific community will agree with that. So when I get them on the calls, I'd simply say, look, I'm going to teach you how to eat whatever you want without sabotaging results. I'm going to show you how to train the way you want without sabotaging results. And then when it comes down to who you hire, I'm going to show you why hiring me is the best. And so, just quickly, so you have insight, I with the eating, I'd said, as long as you eat within these guidelines and parameters, which was a caloric restriction, you'll lose weight. And it would like blow their mind. They're like, are you serious? I'm like, to me, I'm like, this is so simple. But I would explain it in a way that sounds different than a regular trainer. What does a regular trainer say? Customized diet, customized workout, customized program. They don't make any sales. So I'd spice it up a little bit, make it sound sexy. Then with the training, do I think training is good for you? Of course. But if you sit on a couch all day and you don't eat, you still lose weight. So I'd explain that to the client in a, you know, kind of sexy marketing way where I say, look, I think you should work out, but you don't have to. So as long as you just follow these protocols on your eating, you can sit on a couch technically, and it'll still be better off than the person who's not eating healthy. Now, obviously, most of them would agree to do 3 to 4 days a week of training regardless, but they would understand, okay, like, I don't have to do crazy workouts. But yeah, like, you don't need to do crazy workouts. It's just you need to stay in these parameters, move a little bit, you'll be fine. And then when it came to trainers, I would basically just pit in-person trainers and like programs like Beachbody and P90X as the bad options, and I'd explain reasons why. Just so you understand the reasons for a trainer, I would say, look, so trainers, it's illegal for them to give you nutrition. And we know that 90% of results comes from nutrition. So why would you pay a trainer that only focuses on 10% of results? Keep in mind, I'm not against personal trainers, but if I'm an online coach, I need to convince them that in-person trainers are the bad guys, right? So I did. For Beachbody, I'd say, look, they give the same program to everyone. So why do you want to pay for a program that a 300-pound man gets the same as a 200-pound woman? It's completely different. So what you're going to do is you're going to lose a lot of weight in the beginning because they make it really hard, but you're going to fall off because you can't stick with it, and then you're going to gain the weight back, and then you choose the next program. So what I would sell them on is I say, look, I'm the most expensive option, but I'm going to teach you how to eat and train the way you want for the rest of your life. So would you rather pay a big fee once, or do you want to pay $40 every month the rest of your life? And so by that time they're sold. Because they understand the way I framed the call, and I made a bunch of money that way. And to this day, that's how I teach my trainers how to pitch it, because you can't go out and sell high priced products and sound like everyone else. It just does not work. It's too competitive. There's too many people doing it. So you have to give them what they want ethically. And so that was the way I did it. And my ad would say how to eat whatever you want without sabotaging results. And everyone would be, well, that's not possible. How does this work? And if you think about it, it's just caloric restriction. But if I say that, it's too boring and people won't buy. So hopefully, sorry that was a little elongated, but once I get going, it's hard to
No, I
stop.
love
But
it.
that's how it worked, and that's how I made a lot of money. And a lot of trainers, they don't understand that, and so they don't make any money. And they're really good trainers, but they don't understand sales and marketing, and so they never make any money.
I love it. Just like podcasters, there's not a whole lot of podcasters out there that are making money and be able to live the life that they want.
Well,
So.
even podcasters like yourself, if you do more than 21 episodes, you're in the top 1%. That's pathetic. I mean, that is pathetic that someone would think that they're going to become successful before 20 episodes. I mean, it should take you hundreds of episodes, maybe thousands, before you're ever going to see any sliver of success. So, yeah, I just think people's expectations of what they want in life and what they're willing to do are completely misaligned.
Okay, so the last question I ask is: this is a teaching podcast.
Sure.
If Joe Snuffy's going to get out of the military November 14th, 2023, and they want to start a company, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice before they even sign up for an LLC or corporation or whatever?
3 top pieces of advice. The number one piece of advice I wish I'd given myself is I wish I had hired help sooner. And I don't say that because I have a consulting business. I genuinely think that I would have made about 20 million more dollars if I had hired help sooner. So that's number one. Don't think you're good enough to not get help. It's impossible. Like everyone I know who's hit a high level, they've all had mentors, all paid for stuff. It's just part of the game. So pay for it sooner. Number 2 is I would say overestimate how hard it's going to be. When you overestimate, it's way easier because it's always, oh, this isn't as hard as I thought. A lot of people, they underestimate, and so they quit because they think they should get results sooner. I almost quit 5 times in a 2-year window. And if I hadn't had the mentor, I would have. And my life would be completely different. I wouldn't be talking to you. No one would know who I am. I wouldn't help as many people as I have. It'd be completely different. So that's number 2 is overestimate how hard it will be. And then I think number 3 is simply just do not quit. It's basic info, but you only fail when you don't quit. No matter if you're a 1 out of 10 on a talent scale or a 10 out of 10, if I had quit too soon, I wouldn't be where I'm at. And I genuinely, when you asked me earlier why I didn't quit, I just would rather be homeless than quit. And I think they say a lot of successful people, there's 2 things driving them. It's the desire to prove they can do it, but it's also it's like self-esteem at a certain level, like where they are so scared of not being good enough, but they also have a desire to prove that they are. And so it's kind of mixing those 2 things together. And I just didn't want to have people look at me and think I was a loser. And I think that comes from bullying as a kid, where I just have this deep fear of being called a loser or not being good enough. And so I just wouldn't allow myself to lose. And I think if you can mix those 3 things together, you can be super successful.
All right. So last question is, tell us about Elite CEOs. Tell us about where we can find you. Like I said, I've binge watched everything I can find on YouTube about you. I love your Instagram. So talk to us about how we find you and what you got coming up next.
Yeah. So best place would just be to DM me on Instagram. And honestly, they could just type DM Vertical Momentum, so I know they came from here. That actually would be super helpful. In terms of what I'm doing next, I'm just still building the business. I have a couple things in the pipeline that are kind of private, but I'm super excited to make them public when the time's right. But I'm just working on kind of my next thing, the big thing that I think I will be able to sell for 9 or 10 figures, and I'm really excited about it. I traveled the world this year to kind of figure out what that thing was. But yeah, I'm just enjoying life, honestly. I've never been happier than when I'm working. Every time I travel for too long and I think I'm going to find something else out there, I don't. And I think when we're happiest is when we're in pursuit. And so I'm just in pursuit right now, and I'm loving every second of it.
So how do they find you on your Instagram?
Oh yeah, just go to tanner.chidester, shoot me a DM, type in Vertical Momentum podcast, and then I'll know that came from here, and then I'll start a convo with you. But it gives me a little context of where people are coming from.
All right, brother. I love you. I'm so grateful that we finally got together. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with me, and I appreciate you so much.
Likewise, thanks for having me, and I hope it's helpful to the audience.
All right, guys. So make sure you check Tyler out. Also, guys, have you noticed I've been sipping? Yes, I get high on my own supply. Came out with my own coffee, Vertical Momentum Coffee. You can get it at verticalmomentumpodcast.com. You get t-shirts, hats, my #1 best-selling book, and everything I make goes to charity, helping other people. So I don't make any money off of it. So, guys, remember, Vertical Momentum, the only way to go is butt up. Make sure you check out Tyler, because I can't wait to get off now and go binge more of his stuff on IG. All right, Tyler, I love you, brother. Have an amazing week.
You too. Thanks for having me. Bye.